Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Plami, and in this episode of Plami's Thoughts On, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the third episode of The Walking Dead World Beyond. Before we get into it though, I just want to apologize for posting this video so much later than when the episode was released. I'll try to do it sooner for the fourth episode, which I'm going to watch right after I do these two videos for World Beyond and Fear the Walking Dead. If you're curious why I didn't do it sooner, it's basically because I've been busy with my student work, because I've enrolled in university recently, and because I've been trying to see whether I'm gonna be dropping out of university. I know very soon, I'm giving up very soon, but because of personal reasons I might be giving up on studying in university. So I've been trying to see, because I'm waiting to see what my parents are gonna say. I wasn't really feeling like doing a video, because if I was going to leave in a few days, I would much rather do the video back home, not here. But since it's still unclear when I'm going to leave, I've decided to just do this video. And again, as I said, I'm gonna try to do my video on the next episode much sooner. And before we get into my thoughts on this specific episode, to quickly summarize my thoughts on the last two episodes. Basically, episode 1, overall boring, nothing really bad about it, it's just kind of boring. Episode 2, much better, much more interesting in the interactions between the characters. It actually feels interesting to watch them, and very interesting backstory for one of the characters, but still has some parts of it which really drag on, and it's still, the pacing is very slow, and also really cool location for the episode. And this is a perfect way to transition for my thoughts for this episode, because for majority of this episode, or pretty much all of it, we are still stuck in the location of the Blaze of Gory, which again, I'm gonna repeat it, the same thing I said in the last episode. I love the idea of that location. I think using the zombie apocalypse idea to create these kind of unique locations is it's so interesting to think of that, because I think I mentioned it even in the last video, but thinking of cool locations during the zombie apocalypse is kind of how I started to become a writer. That's what my writing imagination started off as, because I became a Walking Dead fan in 2015 and 16 maybe, I kept walking by buildings and or just places with huge yards, and I was thinking like, hey, how can I barricade this place during the zombie apocalypse? And it just started to come up with such cool ideas, which ended up turning into my zombie story, Dead Inside, which you can check out on my Wattpad. And if you donate through Patreon, you get a version of it that you can read offline for yourself. It's not much, like I haven't been able to do a comic, but if I do comic in the future, that probably be also offered to Patreon, but that only depends if I get people to support me and if people like it, the story. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked, so for the episode, I love the location. We see a little bit more of it, or parts of the buildings, I guess. That was kind of interesting, actually. For me, at least, I feel like most people might not enjoy it as much, but for me it was kind of interesting because we saw a bunch of walkers inside of kind of like a factory / industrial building, and it reminded me of a certain YouTuber that I watch called Shy. I think that's how I pronounce his name, or just Shy. He's really cool. He does a lot of train videos in which he rides cargo trains. It's really cool. He has done other videos, and in a lot of his videos he ends up just looking around the old factories and stuff, and that reminded me of it, but with zombies, so I really like that. But there wasn't much interesting about it. Again, I feel like the pacing of this series is so slow. Like, we've hit 3 episodes so far, and if I gotta be honest, barely has happened for 1 episode. The amount of stuff that we've seen in these 3 episodes is not enough for those 3 episodes. It should have been at most an episode and a half, all the things that we've seen. So yeah, we get a little bit more of the locations, we have the characters meet up, we get some of the backstory for Silas, and it's kind of interesting seeing some of the backstory, and that kind of makes me a little bit more invested into the characters. But again, it's just like, it still feels more like, oh, okay, cool, so that's why he's like that, or that's why he feels like that, or whatever. It doesn't feel like I'm invested in them the way I am invested into the Fear the Walking Dead characters or the Walking Dead characters. I'm still mainly watching this for the CRM stuff, even though I didn't really start watching it because of that. I started watching it because I like the premise of it, but I feel like they're just completely even failing at targeting the demographic that would like this and that they are seemingly targeting, because I feel like they're targeting teens and young adults with this, and they're still fucking up with the execution of it. Cause I mean, for me, I still like it, but the pacing is just the worst thing. And one thing I thought I was watching this, especially during the part of the episode in which Iris was repeating that speech about the tiger and the lamb or whatever it was, it really felt reminiscent of the game The Life is Strange, or should I say, it's more Life is Strange, not The Life is Strange, which is a really cool game, and it has a very similar tone, I would say, and a lot of people seem to hate it because of its pretentiousness and cringeness and other stuff like that, but in general, the dialogue in that game feels very reminiscent of or should I say, the dialogue of World Beyond feels very reminiscent of Life is Strange, but it's just, that could be annoying to some people, but on top of that, the pacing is just the worst thing about this series. Because so far we've had one cool locations, the characters are pretty decent, the actors I'm starting to like most of them except Iris and Huck. Honestly, we could drop them and I wouldn't give a shit. And Silas is on the low-key side as well, but depending on where we go, he might get better for me. So far, I mainly like his backstory and his shyness. In the sense that the actor talks, like, it doesn't impress me that much. So far, Elton, Hope, and Felix are just the best characters and the most entertaining ones by far. But yeah, there's not really much to talk about this episode. As I said, we get more backstory for Silas, but it's still not really clear about what exactly happened in his past. And it is a little bit force-fed. Like, the bullies literally say that he's a monster right as he is beside them. I feel like that's way too blatant. They could have done much more tactfully, I feel like. I don't know, it's very heavy-handed. So yeah, this episode, it just feels like a downgrade. There was a couple of cool moments, like when Silas was holding the heel of Tyger that was going to close them off and get them stuck with the walkers. But that was pretty much the only really cool moment that I liked and that stuck out to me, and maybe some of the scenes in the office room, just because we haven't really had a post-apocalyptic office room in so long, in like, what, 4 seasons? I think the last time we had that was either season 6 or season 5. I think it was season 6, but it's been a while, so it was kind of refreshing again. But yeah, we also had the review of what Hope did to Iris. And she took it well, I guess. I don't know. I guess, how they justified that Felix and Huck are gonna go with them now because they cannot force them to go back, and that they're still not okay with them going to find their dad because it's dangerous, and that they're gonna try to talk them out of it. And we'll see how that's gonna go in the 4th episode, but so far, I feel like they've justified it well, and with the idea that it's better for them to continue forward anyway, I think, and go to Omaha if they want to go back to the colony. because otherwise they cannot go back through the Blaze of Glory. I feel like they justified it pretty well. But yeah, this episode, as I said though, feels very much like a downgrade. Like, it's just a whole lot of nothing, and it's not really that entertaining, and there's a lot of pretentious parts about it, and it's just a mess, honestly. So far, I feel like this episode is kind of the epitome of what's wrong with this series. So yeah, I feel like the next episode is going to be a little bit more interesting because I've seen the promo of it and I've seen the final scene, I think, what it is. But yeah, this one was pretty bad. And I almost forgot to talk about the ending of the episode in which we see the CRM stuff. That just completely turned the episode for me, honestly, because for the first majority of it, for like the 2/3, let's say that's the last third of it, like the CRM stuff for the last third of the episode. For the first 2/3 of the episode, I was just constantly pausing and doing something else, like reading on Reddit or browsing YouTube. I was constantly doing that. Comparatively, when I watched the second episode of Fear the Walking Dead, I was glued to the screen. That's how much more entertaining it was. But once we got to that part at the end of the episode, I was glued to the screen again, trying to keep every single information that we hear to remember about the CRM and to try to think of how that changes what we already know about them. And yeah, that scene was actually fucking amazing. It explained kind of why the CRM are the way they are and what their kind of ideology it is and how developed they are actually. And yeah, honestly, I wish we genuinely, as much as I like the concept of the story that they thought of for World Beyond with the teenage characters, I definitely think the show would have been more interesting if we actually followed the CRM and this general public and maybe some other soldiers that do not like the CRM or whatever. That could have been actually much more interesting than what they did with the teenage characters. But again, the problem is not really the concept of the story they're going for. The problem is ultimately the execution of it, and I don't know if it is Gimple's fault or not, but to me, a lot of the problems that this seems to be having are all the problems that there were in Fear, that there were in the main series. It kind of feels like it's getting worse, because I don't really think the other guy who's the showrunner of this series, possibly Matt Red, I don't think he's that bad at being a showrunner. I don't know, maybe it's AMC's fault for asking for 10 episodes, similarly to what they did with The Walking Dead second season, where they had to stay for the farm for a long time because they didn't have the budget to do much more than that. But AMC still wanted like 13 episodes, so maybe it's a case of that with this series. But for The Walking Dead second season, that wasn't really that much of a detriment. Honestly, the location of the farm, to this day, I still love that location. Like, it's a really memorable location, and this season allowed so many of the characters to change. Like, it's personally my number in my top 3 favorite seasons of The Walking Dead. Debatably at number 2. But I'm not sure. I haven't really thought of which are exactly my top 3. I just know 2 of the 3 favorite seasons of The Walking Dead, those being season 9 and season 2. At number 1, it's probably gonna be either season 4 or season 5. Probably season 4 because I feel like it's better. And season 5 would go at number 4. But yeah, I haven't really thought about it. I'll probably do a video about it in the future. So yeah, I really enjoyed all the parts about the CRM. One thing is unclear to me is whether the CRM is in Britain or is it still in the United States, because there was one British flag hung up on the wall, and honestly I would find it much cooler if they are in Britain. I think that might just expand the world of The Walking Dead in a way that we haven't really had in a long time. And in a way, it would make it a little bit similar to maybe 28 weeks later, but yeah, I don't know. So yeah, ultimately I would say, even though I enjoyed the final moments of the episode in which we got the CRM stuff, I just cannot really give this whole episode's a high rating just because I really enjoyed that scene. So I don't remember what I gave the last episode, if I even gave it anything, because I might have forgotten. Now I will give episode 1 a 5.4 out of 10 maybe, because it was just largely boring. It wasn't anything egregiously bad, but it wasn't good. Episode 2, I probably would have given it a 7.3 out of 10, and for this one, I would probably give it a 6.4. Because, again, it wasn't bad, and I like that we were still in the locations, and there were a couple of cool moments, and the ending was pretty cool, but it's just the most of the substance in the episode was just not there, and when it was pretentious stuff that nobody who watches The Walking Dead enjoys. People have been complaining about it for years, yet they still keep doing it. That's not the reason why people watch The Walking Dead. It's not the stupid pretentious speeches. I don't know why it has to be hammered into Gimple's head, but people do not like that. We do not like that. So yeah, I'm definitely much more hopeful for the next episode, but we'll see how that's gonna be, and I'm gonna try to do that video sooner, so if you're interested, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you also are interested, go and check out my stories over on Wattpad. And also, if you enjoy my videos or you simply enjoy my stories, you can also go over to Patreon, where you can pledge your support and help keep the channel going. It helps support me so I can keep writing those stories that you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing, especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think that's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!